Today's guest is Mark Ring, one of Welsh rugby's true cult heroes. Rising through the ranks at Cardiff Rugby Football Club, he lit up the game with flair, imagination and fearless attacking play. A dynamic centre and fly half, Mark earned 32 full Wales caps throughout the 80s and early 90s and was a key part of Wales's 1987 and 1991 Rugby World Cup campaigns, scoring their first ever World Cup try and helping secure a historic third place finish with a win over Australia and New Zealand. In 1988, he won the Triple Crown with Wales, beating England at Twickenham. Later in his career, he went on to forge a remarkable partnership with David Bishop, the Bish, at Pontypool Rugby Football Club. Recurring knee injuries cut short Mark Ring's playing career, but not his impact on the game. His resilience carried him into coaching, where he continues to shape and inspire the next generation. Now a teaching assistant and rugby coach, Mark passes on the values that defined him: skill, creativity and courage. I'm Laurence Winmill, and this is No Straight Lines, Stories of the Unbreakable. Please welcome a Welsh rugby cult hero and true genius of the game, Mark Ring. Mark, I'm delighted to have you here with us this afternoon on No Straight Lines.
Happy to be here.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure, honestly, and I'm pleased. It's not me patronising you, but you were one of those players that when I was watching rugby back in the day, I'm watching it now, but I've got a different slant on it, is you were one of those maverick characters. You just did things that people didn't see coming. And I've read your biography, and I've looked at some of the things that I'd forgotten about, basically, and things that just jump out at me, for example. So when you were a kid growing up, your idol was Barry John. And I didn't know that before, but now looking at that and looking at the way you played, I can see where that sort of, where that type of play came from, because, again, he was potentially a different level. But the beginning for you, it wasn't West's best, was it? It was very much, you were a Cardiff boy. I think you grew up in Tremorfa.
Splot.
In Splot.
Played for St Albans in Tremorfa Park.
Ah, okay.
But I grew up in Splot, yeah.
The guy who drove you, basically, was your dad, who also played rugby at a really high standard, didn't he?
Yep.
So he played for, just for the purpose of the conversation, he played for a top English side, didn't he?
He played for Leicester Tigers.
So what was his position then?
He played centre.
Right.
Leicester Tigers were letters back in the day, so he was mostly M.
I remember the letters.
Yeah, he was M on L. Letters on the back in the day.
And why letters? Yeah. I'd forgotten
I've actually no idea why. It's just not too long ago, really, when they went back to numbers.
Yeah.
But from right throughout the 60s right the way through to the 90s, I'd say.
My God.
Dusty Hare. I remember playing against Dusty Hare.
Remember him?
Oh, yeah, letter. You do remember some of the letters on some of the players. Paul Dodge, Sir Clive Woodward, L&M.
My God, amazing. And Dusty Hare, he was the fullback, I think, wasn't he?
Yes, he was, yeah. I very much remember. I played against Dusty. I played against 4 Leicester Tigers backs when I had my first cap in '83. So Nick Youngs would have been 9.
Yeah. Les
Cusworth 10. Paul Dodge and Sir Clive Woodward and Dusty Hare. So literally 5 of the 7.
That's amazing.
All from one club. Tremendous.
Well, before you did that, and as you said, Cardiff is where you sort of learnt your trade, I suppose.
It was.
So you played all the way through the system. I think you played rugby from 7s all the way through, didn't you? When I say 7s, the age of 7.
The age of 7, yeah. Yeah, I remember being a couple of moments. I only played 3 times as a 7-year-old on the wing.
Yeah.
I remember my old primary school teacher, Miss Doran, God rest her soul. I jumped up one day on a coat hanger and pulled the coat hanger off its screw, off its hinge, and she stopped me playing. And it was the worst thing that she could ever done. I cried my eyes out. I was inconsolable. I was so wrapped up in the game, and I think it was going to be the first time I ever played for the. And it was quite an achievement, actually, because a 7-year-old playing for the under 11s is quite a big gap. You don't see it too often. But Mr. O'Donnell gave me my opportunity and played 3 games as a wing. in my first year as a 7-year-old.
God, so you were playing at 7 years of age for an under-11 side, but as we covered at the outset of the podcast, Barry John was the guy who was sort of your inspiration, and I guess that the reason why you wanted to play 10 and 12?
Yeah, I was born in 62, so 69, I'd have been a 7-year-old.
Yeah.
Playing rugby the first time, so just before that, I'm seeing Barry John when he's sort of just at the beginning, and obviously the Lions tour 71.
Wow,
was that? I think that was the defining moment really when I saw a player that I just wanted to emulate.
Yeah.
And Barry John was the man. He was an absolute genius. Had so much time on the ball. He was never seen rushed or hurried. He had a beautiful way of running, balanced. Like a change of pace. Wasn't like an out and out stepper like like Phil Bennett. But all I ever wanted to be was Barry John. And then one day I went down to the Cardiff Arms Park and I saw him run up the touchline and he threw the ball around his back 3 or 4 times, and I thought, I'm going to do that one day. And yeah, he had such a huge impression on me.
So when the New Zealand team, the Lions defeated in 1971, they came over to Cardiff, didn't they, for that memorable Barbarian game?
Yeah.
Were you at that game, or was? Oh.
No, I wasn't at the game. I was. The one game, I think the game I remember was the Barbarians. I was at that game, and there was a massive sort of sheep.
Oh no, on a stick.
Wooden sheep in the East Terrace. Did you ever see that? Or the West? What was it, the West Enclosure?
It was on the East Terrace.
It was the West Enclosure, the Taff End. Yeah. And I always remember Gareth Edwards scored his try as probably considered one of the greatest tries of all time.
Yeah.
Phil Bennett did his bit of magic, and they went through so many pairs of hands, and Gareth finished it off. And literally, where that sheep is being thrown up in the air, I was on some fella's shoulders. I must have been such a small kid at the time. Well, what year was that? I was
1973.
That was 73. So
you were there.
So I was 11 years of age. And the fella put me up on his shoulders, and I actually saw that.
Oh my God.
I was lucky enough to get a good view of it as a small child.
Because you talk about Phil Bennett. In the 71, they went off to New Zealand, and Barry John became, I think he was renowned as King John, or branded King John after that. But then 2 years on, he retired early, didn't he? And then Phil Bennett stepped into his shoes, if you like, and a different type of player. But again, also a huge player in Welsh rugby, to say the least.
I was broken-hearted. I think he was 27, wasn't he? 27, Barry?
Yeah, I think you're right, when he retired.
Yeah.
Anyway, he retired, but you were on the up.
Well, yeah, I suppose, again, I was a year young. I got selected for Cardiff Schoolboys under-11s.
Yeah. And
we played in a DC Thomas Cup. So I was quite lucky again to be selected for the under-11s a year young. St Albans was my primary school. I'd come all the way through every year, and up to the under-11 age grade when I played for Cardiff, and we got to I think we got beaten in the semi-final by Bridgend, I think it was, in a DC Thomas Cup. But we had a good run in that, and the following year I captained the side, captained the under-11s, and that year then we had that'd have been 1974.
Yeah,
and we played a curtain raiser. Prior to the Wales-Tonga game on the stadium. And East Wales, I represented East Wales, came through the trials and got selected as fly half for the East Wales team. And we played West Wales under-11s. And of course, Jonathan Davis, Jiffy, as he's obviously well known, that Jonathan Davis. Then Jiffy and I were sort of rivals.
Brilliant.
In the number 10 position, playing for East and West Wales.
And what was the result of the game?
We won 10-8, but to be honest, it was 2 tries apiece, and the kicks were under the posts, and you got little fellas trying to. Yeah. I think we just nudged one over, and they missed both of theirs. So,
well, we had 2 geniuses playing at 10, even in those days. And of course, you and Jonathan. I know, obviously, rugby changed further down the road when the game became professional, and a lot of boys went north, including Jiffy. But you must have been up against each other then for right the way through, I suppose.
No, that didn't happen. I sort of came through. Under 12s, 13s, 14s, 15s. I never came across him.
Wow.
Not until youth. Neither of us came through the school system. I was in the squad. Stuart Barnes would have been captain.
Wow.
He was playing full-back.
And that's the Stuart Barnes who was played fly-half, I think, for Newport, wasn't it?
That's right.
Yeah.
And just on the road, Baysleg.
Yeah.
You know, he would have been captain of Baysleg School. And he captained the team from full back, but I was sort of I was in the squad. It was a big squad under 15s, and I was on the bench for the B team.
Yeah.
I remember being told I was just too small.
Right.
Not a hope. And I think Jiffy was in a similar boat. I don't think he'd fully sort of matured, you know, and 15 is still a bit young. You can go either way. You can get the bigger guy that can sort of sprout up and then sort of stay that way, if you like. And then you get the late developers, and I would have been one of those. So I was in a similar situation under 16s and under 19s, but I left to get a job. I worked as a civil servant in a department of trade and industry, and got capped for the youth then. Unfortunately, we only played the one game. It was really bad weather. All the games got called off. We just played the one game against England. We lost 10-9. I did scored a try.
Was that down in Oxford?
It was Oxford, yeah. Iffley Road, I think it was called, Oxford University. I think there was Nigel Heslop. He came on. I think he got a couple of caps. I think he might have been on the bench for England. John Hall played in the back row.
Hall,
He's one of the guys I remember playing for Bath years later. Played against him for Cardiff, obviously, and Wales.
Yeah.
He was a tremendous player. But I remember England had been a huge side, huge in comparison.
Physically big,
bigger than us. Who would have been in our side then? Glenn Webb. Glenn Webb would have been on the wing. Mark Douglas played for scrum half for Wales.
Yes, it's an Ashley boy, wasn't he?
Yeah, and Lampeter, and his brother Carl Douglas was 9, I was 10. Di Joseph and Stuart Evans. Stuart Evans got capped.
Evans the prop.
Yeah,
he went north. Yeah,
both Neath boys.
Yeah.
Phil John, Pontypool, he played. Teddy Shaw, he got a cap, didn't he?
Yeah. So going back to and beyond what you've just described to me there, the Cardiff Rugby Club, you went right through the Cardiff Rugby Club system, didn't you, in terms of... And I think, again, the information that I got from it says that you went off to France for Cardiff, where you made your debut, and you were up against Serge Blanco, weren't you?
I was, yeah.
He scored 3 tries.
He did. Big eye-opener. Nobody knew him then.
Yeah.
You know, he was on the wing for Côte de Basque. It was like a regional Basque region team. We went on tour. I played for the youth in the cup final against Newport at Caerphilly on the Wednesday. Yeah. And we flew out on a Thursday, and I think they had a couple of injuries. They asked me to come along. Yeah. And they put me on the bench, and Glyn Davis got injured. And they moved Julian O'Brien to full back, and I came on as fly half. And I remember my first touch, I'm thinking, you know, let's step inside now, kick back against the grain, show him what I can do, or just lob it over the winger's head. I completely miskicked it straight to him. He ran 60 yards the other way. I think we scrambled a defensive tackle in the corner. That was my first...
Welcome to rugby.
First, memory of playing senior football.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
And it was a tight enough game. I think it was about 20-something points to 3 or something. There's a lot of fighting throughout the game. 2 packs of 4s brawling constantly. Referee completely out of control. But the wing, they just flew in for 3 tries against us. It happened to be Serge Blanco, and obviously we all know what a career he had. Yeah.
But a baptism of fire for you.
It was.
All part of your journey, all part of your learning journey. Well, anyway, moving on from that, you'd made your professional because the game wasn't professional then, but you made your first team appearance, and you became an established part of that Cardiff Rugby Club team, didn't you? And in 1984-85, I think it is, that season, Australia were touring, weren't they?
They were.
And during that tour, they won every international game. So they beat all of the home nations, Wales, England, Scotland, Ireland. But they came to Cardiff Arms Park early on in that tour, and I think you were part of that Cardiff team, and you won the game, didn't you?
We did, yeah.
Talk us through it.
Don't remember too much about it. All I know is there's a huge tradition that the Cardiff have got to do well against the Australians, and in their history they never lost.
Wow.
You know, Cardiff had never lost a match against a touring Australian team, and the pressure was on us a little bit to sort of uphold that tradition, if you like. And I think we found an extra. It was early on for the Aussies. I think it's probably their second or third game.
Yeah.
So we we got them at the right time, really.
Yeah.
They're feeling their way. And we found some extra gear from somewhere. We played a fantastic game.
And you played 12 or 10 in that game, Mark?
I played 12, yeah. Mark Ella was fly half, one of the greatest I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things I remember, I was sort of close enough to the touchline, and he had Roger Gould, the full-back, outside him.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of defending him. And he, out of the blue, from nowhere, he thrust his... I'm looking at the situations, looking at my inside, saying, "Well, I'm going to push over to Roger Gould now because the touchline is my extra defender, if you like, and then I'll be able to push across. Mark Ella's going to make this pass, trying to draw me. I've got plenty of cover on my inside. I can ignore him and take Roger Gould up, no problem. But then, out of the blue, from nowhere, he thrust a hand towards my chest, pulled me towards him, and I'm the tackler, and rolled the ball round my back." To Gouldy, who charged up the touchline. And again, it was another scramble defence situation that literally just kept him out on a corner. And he just did it with so much, apart from it being a unique, something you'd never expect, and caught me totally by surprise. It was just the power and physicality as well. And I basically got manhandled by the man with the ball. And it's never happened to me since. Yeah. And it was an incredible piece of skill. Yeah. And to think that quickly in a small tight area and work his player away down a touchline with no space, it was just astonishing.
And when that happens in a game, at that level, I played sport, at rugby, certainly not at your level, but when something bad happens in a game, like I describe it as bad, sometimes that can affect your confidence, can't it? You think, your head goes down.
Oh, I just wanted his autograph.
And that's what I'm saying. So how do you sort of process those moments? How do you get on with the game after that?
I've always been a believer that you're never going to be the greatest of all time. You're going to find someone better. Yeah. And you learn from that experience, and there's some things you can take from it. I mean, you're just looking at Barry John, as I mentioned earlier on. Some of the things he did, you want to emulate those and try and take it on to another level. And I always thought sort of outside the box, if you like.
Well, you came across, as an observer, you came across as a man who played with arrogance, and take that in the best possible way, somebody who was super confident, who was in control of himself and everybody else around him. You mentioned Barry John, who had all of the time in the world, or gave that impression. You seem to give that impression as well.
I mean, when I remember being like 7 years of age, and an older person, now a friend of my dad's, was overseeing the training session. I mean, there wasn't any coaches back then. I mean, he was just a helper, someone who would be described as someone who's going to help out with a kit and a bit of, obviously doing a bit of coaching, but giving us a bit of guidance. And at 7 years of age, I remember him saying to me, "Look up, have a quick look." Yeah, so I'm waiting for the ball to come from the base of the ruck or whatever, and I'm looking up, how many we got? So I'd be saying 4. 1, 2, 3, it took me a split second to count 4 players.
4 defenders now.
Yeah, 4 defenders. So how many have you got? Looked over to my right, 3. And you makes 4. 4 against 4 then? Yeah, okay. See them 2 on the inside? Yeah, we'll get them on there to make a 6 on 4 then. You know what I mean? You're getting that type of coaching at 7 years of age. And I've always counted numbers. Yeah. And I mean, people will call it scanning, but I don't like the word scan. I mean, scanning takes care of itself, but by counting numbers, I'm seeing myself looking forward, have a quick count over my right shoulder, quick count over my left shoulder, then I'll glance and see if there's anything I can do with the blind side wing, see if the fullback's wide enough, and the ball could be in mid-flight, if you like, and you're still sort of analysing, and that's where the time comes from.
Yeah, I can see it.
And you receive the ball, and you leave it there on your inside hip if you're playing left to right, and you can make a late pass, you make a late decision. And I thought I was pretty good at it.
You were very good at it, Mark.
Until I played against Warwick Taylor many years later on a Wales tour '88. And he made the latest decisions I've ever seen. You could take the ball right up to my nostrils and make a killer flat
then
pass.
makes the pass.
And a disguised pass
Yeah.
as well. To some, like Smoking Joe Stanley, as he called him, coming in on a short ball. And then Kerwin coming round the outside and holding that ball for that extra split second. And then I changed my game again. It was after a few injuries. So it slowed up a little bit. So I made it more. I wanted to make it more of a specialist sort of second 5/8 position, like the New Zealanders played it, like Warwick Taylor played it. So I sort of started basing my game on him.
So you're learning all the time.
So all the time, learning from other players, players you've seen on TV,
A
players.
couple of stand-up players in my lifetime anyway. We mentioned Barry John. We mentioned Jonathan Davis. There's you, and I mean that. With all sincerity, and then into the modern era, you're talking about these people who are sort of have time and control of their game. We see it now with Finn Russell in the Scottish team, don't we?
Absolutely.
And what he did, most recently against Wales, where they lost that game with his quick thinking. So, for me anyway, you're there in that league. You're one of those guys who is always looking to learn, develop. You're ahead of the game and ahead of everybody else, and that. And I'll use a quote from a former playing colleague of yours, Martin Madden, who I've had the pleasure of interviewing recently, said to me when he played with you at Pontypool in particular, he said, Ringo, he used to call you never knew what he was going to do next. He said, but he could create something out of nothing. It'd be a kick over the top, but he would put a man into space when you didn't think that space was going to exist by doing something magical. And so what that tells me is the people who played around you or with you, they all knew what you were able and capable of doing. And you changed games.
Yeah, well, you mentioned Finn Russell. And, I see him finding his own depth. Finn Russell will hit a flat line. If someone's carried the ball beyond the opposition and they won a quick ruck. But a lot of the time, he'll find some depth. And what Finn Russell is trying to do, he's trying to, make time on the ball. And when you make time on the ball, the defences show their attacking hand first, and you're there, so the defensive hand first, and then Finn Russell shows his attacking hand after them, and I think that is the secret, really, of playing football. And I hope that's what I tried to achieve anyway. I mean, not always successfully. Made many mistakes along the way.
Well, you certainly did. Well, listen,
you should never worry about making mistakes.
Compliment to you. I read some, doing some research, read some old press sort of cuttings about you, and you were renowned you were quoted as the glamour boy of Welsh rugby at the time. So, we've had a few of them. We Gavin Henson, back in the day, Mark Ring, but during that period where you were the glamour boy of Welsh rugby, you accumulated 32 caps. Of those 32 caps, what were the sort of three standout moments for you during that 32 cap era?
Three standout moments. There were two games. I had about a 10-minute period against Scotland on my third cap, where everything seemed to come off. Just popped a little grubber kick through and it stood up for me nicely, and then kept the ball moving. We had a try disallowed. Still can't figure out today why it was disallowed. Made an outside break, and then in the second half, made a couple of sort of step-in runs on the inside of Peter Dodds, and Dave Pickering scored. So there was a couple of times at Muddyfield. One was like the first one was 88 was in Cardiff when we had a Ian Evans,
Ian and Jonathan scored,
such fantastic tries. But the earlier ones in 85 in Muddyfield, I think that was only my third cap at that point.
Yeah.
And so I was really pleased. And then we went over to Parc des Princes then, and we lost the game. We wasn't much in it, but there was like cockerels flying on, feathers and cockles on the pitch, and firecrackers going off and smoke everywhere. Like, God knows how many people in the crowd, and like partisan atmosphere. And I played well. Like Lescabora, he dropped out like a long dropout past the dead ball, past the 10-meter line, and it went straight to me, and I took it straight back and stepped about 3 or 4 players straight up the middle of the park, and I I was just very confident at that time. It was a nice time. I think it culminated then with the Rugby Writers Player of the Year for my performances that season. So I suppose your first cap is always the one you remember, but it was an anticlimax. My first cap.
The English game, is it?
Yeah, at 83, it was an anticlimax because it was a draw. We scraped a draw, and it was just it was one of them games. It was a very forward orientated game. We went behind early on, and it was all we tightened it up to try and catch up and get in front. We never did. We got the draw in the end, but we were never in front until the last sort of quarter of the game, if you like. And I only touched the ball about 4 times in the entire match. So you drew the game, but you weren't really in the game then, was it? As far as you were concerned, you personally, or? Yeah, it's just one of those games. I mean, I wasn't selected, to be honest. I was, because Robert Ackerman got injured. I was in the squad. I'd only ever played 12 first team games at senior level up to that point, and I was still an outside half, and Gareth Davis was there, so they give me an opportunity at fullback. I hated it, so they give me another opportunity as a centre. So the Welsh Rugby put me in the squad as a centre. I think I must have been in there for someone they were looking to bring on in the future.
Yeah,
add me to the squad and just give me a bit of experience with the squad. But when Ackerman got injured in the last session before we played the first game against England, John Bevan had the confidence in me to throw me in, and I was only 20, and it was
learning.
The experience was fantastic. But Robert was fit for the next game and came back in, and quite rightly so. I mean, he had far more experience than I did at the time.
A couple of games, you don't mind me saying, where maybe you will mention them, but I'll mention them for you. A couple of standout moments. So you played against England with your debut in 1983. You also played then in the 1988 tournament where you were Triple Crown winners, and that memorable game at Twickenham where you played and made a huge contribution from where I was sitting anyway in that game. I think there was a couple of switch passes. You put Adrian Hadley over in the corner. My God, that must have been a special day that for you up at Twickenham.
It was.
God, beating we don't beat them very often these days, do we? So
no, that was the first time I'd ever played at Twickenham, and I wanted to be the first one into the change rooms. I was thinking this oldie worldy type place, with all its tradition and historical sort of memories of of games past, and I got down to the front of the bus as we pulled into the ground.
Yeah.
Grabbed my kit bag and straight at first one into the change rooms. As I expected it to be, there was a big, huge communal bath.
Yeah.
There was some few showers. There was a couple of individual baths, and there was like a couple of, tables for rub downs and stuff.
Yeah.
All leather, glistening leather, but old, and the smell of the old wintergreen smell.
I remember it well. Yeah.
Yeah, and on top of one of these rub down benches, there was a pile of yellow, what they call tele-messages back then. Before tele-messages were telegrams, then there were tele-messages, text messages these days, but these envelopes were there, and the one on the very top was, it said, to the Welsh rugby team. I was the first one in. I thought, well, I'll open it. So I opened it, and there it was. I read it. I can swear, kick Holy into the English Spike Milligan. So it was like it was a load of expletives on wishing us the best to beat England.
Yeah.
So that was the start of it.
Yeah.
We went out and played. And the other thing I remember obviously was there was a lot of build up. The Sun and the News of the World.
Yeah, typical English press.
Yeah. There was a photograph in one of the newspapers. I can't remember which one it was. It was like Mick Skinner arm wrestling in a local pub in Richmond. Mickey the Munch Skinner, and England had picked him open side, and he was a big sort of. He was athletic, but he was more of a number 6 than a number 7 in my eyes, anyway. But they picked him open side, and I think one of one of the captions in one of the photographs, I know, on a quote or something, what he's gonna do when he gets hold of Jonathan Davis. So
you'd have to catch him first,
Jiffy,
wouldn't you?
exactly. So Jiffy was like, myself and Blethin Bowen were next to Jiffy. Blethin's left-sided.
Yeah.
I'm right-sided.
Yeah.
So it was a nice balance of playing left centre and right centre as we did back in the day.
Yeah. 3 fly-halves in the same team.
Exactly, but there was no inside and outside. It was, there's like I suppose Jamie Roberts came along and he was that gain line, sort of crash ball inside centre.
Yeah.
But we were sort of left centre, right centre. There was a scrum sort of central. I'm on one side and Blethin's on the other side, so close enough to listen to. And his squeaky little voice, and he was, Mickey the Munch Skinner. Which way am I going then, Mickey? Which way am I going then? And he'd stand behind the scrum. Ball had come back. We had a nice solid scrum, and he'd step to the left, go on his outside, and all game he was just taunting,
winding him up,
taunting non-stop. And I mean, it wasn't even like a game where you could say, well, like, if you're 20, 30 points clear, right, that there's ever going to be any sort of banter, right? Because you need to be concentrating on that game, get the game won, and if the game's won, you can, maybe a few verbals will come out. But it was right from the very beginning. It never stopped. You must have given this Mickey the Munch an earache. Right the way through the game.
But again, you had some characters in that team. Jiffy is obviously a huge character, and another player who played with confidence and was able to get away with that because he knew that Skinner was never going to catch him, was he?
It was crazy. It was crazy. And myself, I was a bit sort of off the wall. And I was never going to be sort of, dragged into some, basic rugby, a game of basic rugby back in the old amateur days. And Jiffy was exactly the same. And we both knew each other since we were 11 years of age. And our confidence just rubbed off on each other. But we had a lot of good fortune that the captain of the team was Blethin. Blethin was the other centre, and Blethin was sensible.
Very sensible.
And he sort of knew when to let us go and when to pull it down,
Blethin had to be sensible. He was a former policeman, wasn't he?
Blethin? Yeah. but we were in grave danger there of completely being out of control in that game because the confidence was just so sky high. And the forwards gave us a platform and we could play off. I mean, they didn't score, did they? But we scored two tries and
you won the game. And you won the Triple Crown. And then you lost the championship by a point to France in Cardiff.
That was for the Grand Slam.
I know.
Yeah, and it was the last game of the season. And traditionally, in the Five Nations as it was back then, you'd think, like, the weather's going to be nice, and the one thing we had in our favour, or you could have said this about France in the past, that their back line, let's the heavens open up and hinder their back line. But it was the other way around. We wanted it to be a dry day, and it absolutely bucketed down. And it was a wet, mucky old day, and
fine lines.
Absolutely. Could have had the roof then. That would have helped us.
That would have helped, Mark.
We'd have won. I'm telling you, we'd have won.
Well, when you did win, and you were involved, was in 1987, inaugural World Cup in Australia. You were part of that.
I was.
Huge memorable moment. You finished third in that tournament, and you played. And I think that you scored the opening try, didn't you, for Wales?
I did, yeah. The only try I ever scored for Wales. And it was people told me after, I had no idea, that obviously it was the first Wales try that was ever scored in the first
World Cup. Brilliant.
And believe it or not, I was in a quiz, and my team, the Nine Giants, I was representing a team in the Nine Giants quiz night. And
North Cardiff.
We drew. We tied with this other team, and there was a tie-break question, and this money had rolled over. I think it was about 450 quid and 24 tins of Carlin, which my quiz teammates were eager to get their hands on, and the bonus question to take the whole lot was who scored the first try for Wales in the first World Cup. And I'm thinking to myself, we played Canada first. Ian scored 4 tries. So they said, well, what do you think, you were actually there? I said, yeah. I said, Ian Evans. And and we got it wrong. And it was me. And
Too many Carlings.
I was the answer. So they've never let me live it down, the lads.
That's hilarious.
Oh,
well done, Mark.
Yeah.
Congratulations. But anyway, you finished third in that tournament. I think you played that playoff game in New Zealand, and I think it was Paul Thorburn who kicked that conversion.
It was, yeah.
I think it was the final minute of the game, wasn't it? That was the end?
More or less.
Yeah.
Yeah, more or less. God, it was like, it was hard for us. We were fairly confident, in our ability to do well in the World Cup, but then you come to the semi-final, and we'd moved from Invercargill, which is freezing cold. I remember watching England play Japan. All the boys were around watching the TV, right, by like a coal fire. You all huddled around the fire in Invercargill, freezing cold. And England were playing in Australia, and you cut their sleeves short, and you're looking at suntans, players playing in the bright sunshine. And we're thinking, God, we're stuck in Invercargill, and they're in Brisbane or somewhere. So then we had to travel then from Invercargill to Australia to play them in that quarter-final.
Yeah.
And whether that had something to do with it, I've no idea, but we seemed to win at hack canter. It was like 18-0 or 18-3 or something. And they never looked in the game at all. It wasn't a great game, but it was a comfortable win. I was on the bench for that game. John Devereux was a tremendous
different
power player
who
was coming through the system. Myself and there were four centres. Kevin Hopkins was the other one with Blethyn. They could utilise whatever tactically, whichever way they wanted. But he had a great tour, John Devereux, and he was so powerful. But we conceded so many points against New Zealand in the semi-final. It made you think, well, something's got to change. Something's got to change in Wales, because we've gone in there full of confidence and got absolutely blown away. So then to come back from Australia to New Zealand then to play the third and fourth place playoff, it was mentally hard.
I bet it was.
It was. We had to pick ourselves up from a huge defeat, and then you're playing against Australia in a third and fourth place playoff. But I don't know.
Won it.
Yeah, we. Thanks to Paul Thorburn's amazing touchline conversion.
You came away with the points.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to play in the game, and
you scored the opening try in that tournament.
And it's still there today as the highest finishing.
Well, I'm gonna move you on, and it's a fabulous achievement. And there's some other stats I'm going to call out here as well. So, of course, you got to the final of the Heineken Cup at Cardiff, unfortunately beaten by Toulouse in the final.
Yeah.
But again, big memorable moment.
Yeah.
I don't think there's unless I'm wrong, I don't think there's another Welsh team who've done that since, is there? Got to the final.
No, not the main one. No.
And then some other standout moments, really. Of course. Unfortunately, injuries started to creep into your game, didn't they?
Yeah.
And I don't know. Explain to us, injury upon injury upon injury. How does that impact upon your sort of confidence, to play the game, your rehabilitation, your mental? Where's your head whilst all this is going on?
The Heineken Cup final, I was 1996. So, given my first cap was 83.
It's a long time, isn't it?
And then when I was Player of the Year in 85. I remember going up to receive the Rugby Writers, trophy.
Yeah.
And there was a young Player of the Year who was Ian Evans at the time. So I've got a picture of myself and Ian Evans picking up our respective trophies, and I'm on crutches. So that Jonathan Davis's first cap was at the end of that 85 season against England, where he scored 2 tries on his debut, and I was absolutely full of confidence at the time.
Yeah.
And really looking forward to playing that game with Jonathan. First time we'd have ever played together since we played against each other in that. I keep going back to it, the 1974 curtain raiser. It was a tough time, because it was only the week before you're playing for your club side against Swansea. I was playing for Cardiff against Swansea at home, and had we beaten Swansea, it was our last home game of the season, and we'd have kept an unbeaten home record intact. And I remember Teddy Holmes saying, look, you've got to play. And I was saying, I feel a bit tired. He said, oh, come on, we got to win this game, keep our home record, blah, blah, blah. And then the knee went. It was a shocker. It was big, massive dislocation. Left knee, the bone dropped right down. All the anterior cruciate, medial ligaments, meniscus, chipped the bone. It was leg stuck there. 2 people double tackle. And the annoying thing was we had a penalty about 40 yards further up, and the referee was playing advantage. And the advantage, we were never getting any advantage because we were keeping the ball alive to try and make something of the advantage, but it was never going to happen. We were going backwards and further backwards, playing like 7-a-side rugby when it happened. So that left a little bit of a bitter pill in my mouth, but thanks to Cardiff, really, that I made the comeback at all, because they were so professional. I was operated on literally the same within hours, within 3 hours of the injury. Today, I mean, with the state of the health board, and people are waiting years and years and years for operations, and Cardiff's connections.
Exactly.
I'm operated on within three hours, and then after that, the rehab. I was in a rehabilitation centre.
Yeah.
Twice a day in a pool. Medicine ball. As soon as I came out of plaster, medicine ball. Started from non-weight bearing up to 35 kgs. And just building up because there was huge muscle loss.
Well, all credit to you. For any sportsman to come back from injuries of that significance is momentous, to say the least. I must have said something about your. But
the rehab was so important because this knee now is stronger than the other one.
Wow.
The left knee is much stronger because I did all that rehab. Because it's in '89. I did another knee injury to the medial on the right leg, and I was out 11 months with the first one, and then 3 months with the next one. Well, 3 months is nowhere near as serious by comparison, but the wear and tear on this one, I didn't rehab as much. More
and
towards
you're
the end
getting
of my
older
career
as well, Mark, and recovery time is much longer, isn't it? Healing and everything else.
Yeah, but the mental side of it is the toughest. You think you have your good days when you think you're never gonna, you're looking forward to making your comeback, and I'm still young enough as well. The age was important. It was at 85.
And I guess for any sports person, you just want to play, don't you? And when you can't play,
mid-20s, so I'm determined. It's that determination to come back as well, better than before.
Well, all credit to you. I'm going to push you on a bit.
Yeah,
Cardiff, you had a brilliant time. You were Cardiff through and through, from a kid right the way through to senior rugby and beyond. And then you left Cardiff, you went to Pontypool, and you forged quite a remarkable partnership with another Welsh institution, I think, Mr. David Bishop, Bish as they call him. So just spend a few minutes just telling us about that remarkable partnership and what it was like playing with the Bish.
Well, strangely enough, I'd made up my mind I was leaving Cardiff.
Yeah.
I'd been there a while, and I could see there were sort of some players coming in from sort of outsiders, I'd call them, really, and they'd been looked after, tapped up for jobs and cars, and it was the amateur days back then. I'd given a lot to the club, and I'd never really seen any of that come my way. Nobody offered me any help, so I was on a very lowly paid job, and I was still in the civil service after about 8 years, and I'm thinking, right, I'm going to start, using, being fairly well known as a rugby player, and try and get on, and get a decent job for connections through rugby, because we weren't allowed to get paid for it then. This was it. This was our only sort of way forward. So I decided I was going to go and see what the bright lights of London looked like. So the Welsh connections obviously takes us to London Welsh, and I literally on the verge of signing for London Welsh. I literally agreed, to they were going to put me through a 4-year university course in 1 year.
Wow.
And I was going to be helped through it by the person who designed the course. So that was the idea. And then at the end of it, then I'd have the qualification to to run my own, run a leisure centre, if you like, and that was my next way forward. And then I came back from a weekend down there where I sort of been through the entire process of meeting everybody, and all I'm going to do now is literally make up my mind and join. And then Bish had heard through the grapevine that I made up my mind I was leaving Cardiff, and asked me to come up to Pontypool for a training session. And it's like chalk and cheese. It's like, I'm just looking around the place. It's a lovely picturesque place, Pontypool, but the amount of people just watching the training session. Wow. It never came across like anything like that in Cardiff. This was like completely different. But also, it was like real old school training as well. Yeah. There's the ski slope. They call it the grotto. Yeah. And you've got to run over the grotto. Before you run over the grotto, you've got to go into pairs, and the props and hookers up the front. Then it's the second rows, then it's the back row, then the half backs, then the centres, the full backs, the wings of the back, all in twos. And there's like a 400-metre pitch marked out around the outside of the main pitch, and you've got to gallop for 4 laps. And the idea is that the props and the hookers push it so hard they run the legs out of the
backs,
the athletes at the back. Right, so we've killed ourselves for 4 laps, and the idea is you got to try and overtake as many people as you can to get to the front, because you're not allowed to overtake anybody until you get to the final lap of 4. And then we'd have a quick drink, and then run over the grotto. I think I'm never going to get to the top. And then you're punching away, and you get to the very top, and you take a huge sigh of relief. Then you've made the top of the first slope, and then you can't stop yourself. It's so steep, you can't stop yourself coming down. So you're trying to, you haven't got time to recover before you got to do the second climb. So the second climb, I'm up, and then I'm back down, and then I'm back on the pitch. I'm thinking to myself, my God, I'm dying. Another quick drink, and then we're running forwards and backwards on every line. And everything's a race, and everything's a challenge, and everything's a competition. And I've trained on a Tuesday, and I haven't touched the ball. And
just a different way of life, different way of doing things.
Completely different way. But then there's an atmosphere, and there's like, I don't know, 200 people watching a training session.
Well, it's that club. I'm mindful we're probably running out of time, but that club, the leg, Bobby Windsor, Charlie Faulkner, Graham Price, Eddie Butler, Jeff Squire, the list goes on, David Bishop, now Mark Ring. But
they're on to me. They whisked me into the changing room. They whisked me into a private room now, in the changing room.
To sign, was it?
They're all around me. They're hovering around me, and they're, what you doing? What's the story with London Welsh? Blah blah blah. They seem to know everything about me, and then the final thing, they're saying, "Listen, you want to play fly half? You want to? This is you and this guy. This is what we want to do. We want to pair you 2 guys up. We see you as the next top class sort of halfback combination, and the warmth and the want and the desperation from me. I'm thinking, I've made up my mind. I didn't think twice. I just signed on a dotted line, there and then. I was just.
And when you signed, and I love that. I
was a piece of cake.
You were very good at negotiating, but was it? It was memorable. You had a huge impression, didn't you? Or made a huge impression. And you and David Bishop. I don't know whether it was for 1 season, a couple of seasons. But my God, it seemed remarkable. You seemed to be in the headlines every sort of weekend or every other weekend on the rugby calendar.
Yeah, well, I wanted to make an impression as a fly half. It was always my favourite position.
Yeah.
And I ended up as a centre just, because Gareth Davis was at Cardiff and he was holding down that position, British Lion.
Yeah.
You as a pecking order, you can't just waltz straight into the team. So it was an opportunity to play fly half, and some of these players I played with, they weren't big names, they were outstanding athletes. And some of the training we talked about, that not that I didn't think much of it, but it didn't make that much sense to me from a rugby perspective. It made sense on the park because those guys were so fit. They were just ruthless in their sort of mentality and their physicality and their pace around the park. It was just great. It was fantastic to play with them, and just, I mean, Ray Prosser was obviously Bobby Windsor was the main coach there. He'd taken over from Ray Prosser, but Ray Prosser was still sort of very influential in terms of how he thought the game should be played, and he was very forceful in saying you've got to keep that ball in front of the forwards, and I think he was trying to get me to kick it in front of the forwards, but I didn't want to do that because I thought, well, if you can run it. And it doesn't break down in front of the forwards. The forwards are still getting up and getting forward.
Oh, yeah.
So that was the philosophy, really. And
how long were you there for, Mark?
Well, it was the 87-88 season. And then Bish went north then. So I went back to Cardiff.
And you eventually...
And I was at a second time.
Cardiff second.
No, I was at Pontypool a second time.
Oh, you were right.
Later on.
Okay.
I did a second stint there.
Well, listen, I know you're from there, and we haven't got time to spend on the coaching side, but you went on and you had a coaching career. I think you played down in Penzance. You coached down in Penzance.
No, I played and coached.
Played and coached. And West Hartlepool as well.
West Hartlepool, that was before Penzance and Newlyn.
And then, as far as the coaching is concerned, did you enjoy coaching? Or
absolutely loved it.
You loved it, did you?
Loved it. Never stopped thinking about the game. I'm the same today.
Well, you're still coaching now, aren't you?
Yeah, I coach small groups now, 1-to-1 in small groups. Just to live imparting knowledge. You know what I mean? You think that you think in this day and age that the game's moved on to a certain level, and the young players would have more. Would have more understanding of the minor detail, the small details in skills, which they haven't.
I follow your narratives on LinkedIn. So sometimes when we see a game being played, particularly some of these now during the Six Nations, from time to time, you'll go onto LinkedIn and you'll give a complete analysis of a game. Analysis like you very rarely see these days. It's long, it's very technical, but my God, what it tells you is that there's somebody writing this who's seeing the game through different lenses, who's seeing the game as, I don't take this the wrong way, as only a genius, a forward thinker, a rugby creative would see it. And that's a huge compliment to you.
Well, I appreciate that. But in some instances, the genius is not sort of in the thinking of introducing something new. It's just seeing something that somebody else has done immediately, right? I just feel, I wouldn't sort of use the word genius at all. I mean, I wouldn't, but I would think, for me, it's common. It would be really straightforward and a natural instinct to look at a clip and see something straight away that jumps out at me and say, well, that team is being coached a certain way. And what I can't understand is that international coaches and coaches in a professional environment can't see it. So, for example, I mean, I would say, like, when Sports Code came out for the very first time, I bought I paid £3,500 for a laptop with all the software on it, and I loved it. And I put specific clips on there that were just personal to me. Whatever I could get them by. There's not that many of them because there's not that many things that jump out at you. But one clip I had on there was it was years and years and years ago. It was like New Zealand against Argentina, and a ball was thrown in a line out, New Zealand ball, and they've tapped it badly over the top of the scrum half's head. Weepoo, that's how far back we're going. So he's dropped on the ball, and Argentina run forward, and New Zealand have literally, like Tom Brown school days, they're all off their feet, a big heap of bodies, Weepoo's on the bottom, the ball is somebody retained possession of the ball. All the Argentinians are on their feet and spread out. All New Zealand were in a heap of bodies on the floor. That's the scenario. Next thing you know, New Zealand are going to pick the ball up and try to make some hard yards, and there's going to have somebody's leeching on, driving the next player up with the ball, and they're going to send a little mini ruck, and then somebody else. But every single time that they've driven up, the person who's sort of latching on, if you like, has come right over the top and pinned 2 Argentinians to the ground. And the next guy's picked up the ball and driven on with a leacher, and he's done exactly the same. And next, you know, the New Zealand have got the ball at the base. They've made about 10, 15 metres on carries. And all the Argentinos who are on their feet are now on the floor because New Zealand players have put them there. And New Zealand players on their feet, and they pass the ball out to the back line. But I'm thinking to myself, well, you know, that is like, it's so straight. So why don't we put people on the floor? So God knows how many years later, we're still not doing it. But because New Zealand now have taken that from a defensive perspective to an attacking perspective. So they're taking the ball into contact, and as they come in, they're driving people and pushing people against each other. Defenders are ball watching around the fringes, you know, and they just, every ruck, there are heaps of bodies on the ground, and the other team have got 15 players in attack against 11 defenders because there's 4 players back in the backfield. So when you play 15 against 11, 2 or 3 rucks, you keep putting players on the floor at the rucks, and they're going to find some space. And there's hundreds and hundreds of little sort of simplistic ideas that I can see when they're happening. And
it must frustrate you.
Well, you know, I mean, I think it took Warren Gatland and co 10 years to figure out, you know, what you know, the escorting lines. You know, when they're running across, players which they've just banned. These, you know, balls gone up, the box kicks gone up.
Yeah.
And defenders are running across the chasers,
and they're penalising,
forcing them inside and outside. You know, as a giving time on the catcher. But you know, it took Wales 10 years to figure out that New Zealand were doing that 10 years previously. I don't think
that's my point, and it's my final point on your coaching is that you were seeing things through different lenses, and that tells me that I'm speaking to somebody who is, despite what you say, I'm not a genius. I think you genuinely are a rugby genius who played the game on the front foot, who created space like the true legends of the game did, such as Barry John and Phil Bennett, and we've already talked about the modern game in terms of Finn Russell. But you, during your time, you played that way. You created the space. You were a maverick. In my eyes, you were a genius. Mark Ring, thanks very much indeed for coming to join us on No Straight Lines, the podcast.
Absolute pleasure, Laurence.
Fabulous story.
Thank you very much
indeed.
Pleasure.
Thank you.